RadioMaster makes a lot of radios. And in this video, we're going to do a quick run through of RadioMaster's radios to hit the high points and low points of each one to help you decide which one is the best one for you. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. And I guess what we'll do is we will start at the bottom and work our way up and see where in that list you fall. The RadioMaster T8L is RadioMaster's least expensive radio. It sells for about $40. And that alone might be enough to encourage you to get one. I would buy one of these if I just needed an inexpensive controller to use on the simulator, something small, lightweight. Although it's inexpensive, it feels nice and firm and solid in the hand. The gimbals are, they're fine. They're okay. But considering it's $40, you probably would expect them to be much worse. They feel pretty smooth. The ergonomics are great. It's a fine little radio. As far as range and performance goes, all of these radios run Express LRS, and so the only difference between them really is going to be which frequency they support, 2.4 gigahertz, or 900 megahertz, or both, and how much output power they have. This radio has 100 milliwatts of output power and 2.4 gigahertz, and that means you're going to get fine range, but not like class-leading range. The main downside of this radio is that it's not very configurable. You may see that as an upside. Like, take all the options and confusing and just get them out of the way and give me a radio that works. This is that radio. It doesn't have a screen. It doesn't have any of the normal things that you would use to configure an EdgeTX radio. It has a web-based configurator app that was released by RadioMaster. And it seems like it might be running EdgeTX underneath. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, but you wouldn't know. You can do the most basic of configuration, like remap the switches to a different channel. You can do that. And you can adjust the endpoints and calibrate the gimbals. And you can change the stick modes between like mode 1 and mode 2. And that's more or less it. You want to do anything more sophisticated, dual rates, all that stuff, you can't do it. Now, you might be thinking I'm a little bit of a hypocrite because I dissed FreeSky for using closed source instead of open source, and potentially this, I don't even know if this software is open source or not, but it's definitely not standard EdgeTX. And the thing is, it's $40 freaking dollars. It's so inexpensive that I kind of forgive them that sin, and it just feels like they're trying to serve a market where for a simple, dare I say dumbed down? I wouldn't say dumbed down. You're not dumb. You just want a simple radio that does what you need it to do. The other downside of this radio is that it only supports one model. Now, that doesn't mean that you can only bind it to one aircraft. It's standard Express LRS inside. You can bind it to as many aircraft as you want, and just whichever one you power up, that's the one you'll be using. But what it does mean is that if you have one aircraft where the switches are set up one way and one aircraft where the switches are set up another way, then the switch mapping to the channels is going to be fixed. And that's the kind of thing on these more sophisticated radios. You would have different models for different combinations of switch setups, different channel mappings, and so on. This radio can't do that. I would say that this probably shouldn't be the primary radio for almost anybody. It could be a first radio that you get to just see if you like FPV, and then when you start branching out, you get something a little bit better. It could be a second radio that you get if you want to just have something to hand out to your cousin or your little brother, or you're going to just something that you want to give to somebody temporarily. Or it could absolutely be a radio that you get to play on the simulator. The ergonomics the gimbals are a little small. They're a little small, but they're way better than an Xbox controller, and I have played like Firehawk FPV on this for an hour or so and had no problem whatsoever. I will say, I have learned, because my son was playing Firehawk FPV and liftoff micro drones, if you plug it in and use it to play simulator, it charges, but it doesn't charge quite as fast as it discharges, and after about 2 days, the battery will be low and it will start beeping and you'll be like, what is that sound? Because your son left it turned on. So, little voice of experience there. probably not going to be an issue for most people. Next up, we have the RadioMaster Pocket. And in my opinion, this is probably the radio that most people who think they want the T8L as their first radio should actually get. It's a little more expensive. It's in the $60 to $70 range. The prices are constantly changing, and I didn't look before I started recording this at the exact price right now. And at the time that you're watching it, the price will probably have changed anyway. But it's in the $60 or $70 range, and it still has 100 milliwatt Express LRS output, so same as the T8L, although it does have this folding external antenna, which should give you a little more range than the internal antenna on the T8L. Again, the stock gimbals are just fine, maybe even half decent, and it's just a little bit easier in the hand to get a hold of than the T8L, which is just a little bit smaller and more like a game controller. The gimbals feel like they stick out just a little bit more. You have a menu, a very small screen and menu, so you can do full EdgeTX configuration. Why are both of my gimbals centering? They're not. Why is this in mode 1? I don't know. This is a radio that can basically do everything that its bigger brothers can do, just in a smaller form factor and with slightly less output power. The RadioMaster Pocket runs off of two 18650 batteries, so you'll get plenty of runtime, and you can always have a couple extra batteries in your pocket if you want to swap them out compared to the internal battery on the T8L. And the RadioMaster Pocket does have a module bay on the back, so if you did want to get longer range by going to a higher powered Express LRS module, you certainly could. The other thing that makes the RadioMaster Pocket stand out is its small and compact size, and in fact, even the sticks screw off and go into these little recesses in the back. So if you're looking for a radio that you can just chuck in a backpack and have it rattling around in a backpack, that's the one for you. Or if you just have not a lot of space and you want to make the most of it. The main downsides of the RadioMaster Pocket, at least for me, you may think it looks cool. If you love the way it looks, more power to you. I think it looks kind of like a toy. That shouldn't matter, and maybe it doesn't matter, but it kind of does. It doesn't look cool. The 100 milliwatt output power is going to have reduced range. That's enough where if you're running at higher packet rates like 250 hertz or above, you will start to notice some reduction in range compared to the more powerful radios, even under sort of normal park flying situations, and certainly if you're doing like bando penetration tests or something like that. The screen is very small. I don't mind. I've been using EdgeTX for a long time, and I can run these little screens, a little text-based interface, no problem, but some people may prefer a larger screen, especially people with older eyes. I guess we'll just keep working our way forward chronologically. This is the RadioMaster Boxer, and this is the original Boxer, not the newer Boxer Crush. I don't even know if they still make this. They might have just replaced it with the Boxer Crush, but you might find one on the used market or something. The RadioMaster Boxer is a step up in terms of size, but it's still not as big as like the full-fat TX16S that we'll see a little bit later in the video. It's still relatively compact, fits in the hands really well, fits in a backpack pretty easily, although we're definitely at the point now where it's gonna you're probably not gonna be able to slide it into your backpack like bookshelf style. Your backpack probably isn't deep enough to do that, but it might be. You might just get away with it. Full-sized gimbals, you have the option to upgrade to the high-end AG01 full metal CNC gimbals if you want. You can also get custom colors. These are aftermarket gimbals, or you can buy the Max version of the radio that comes with the metal upgrades and the upgraded gimbals. Still a relatively small screen, but bigger, fewer switches. So here we've got 1, 2, that's a 2 position, 2 position, 3 position, and on the top, and that's it. That's it. That's just it. There's no sliders. There's these knobs, of course, and you've got a 6-position switch here, although it is not the full programmable 6-position switch that's on the newer radios. So this is just going to act like a knob where it's either down or all the way up or somewhere in the middle. You're not going to be able to break these buttons out and have like this one be a toggle and this one be something else. It doesn't work like that. Who is the Boxer for? Well, I think what we need to do is look at the other radios in this sort of second tier of RadioMaster radios and then sort of cross-compare what makes them stand out. This is the RadioMaster TX15, and it's very, very similar to the Boxer in size, but it has a slimmer more rounded profile that, in my opinion, feels better in the hands, although some people do like the larger, boxier profile. I like the TX15. It has a 1-watt express LRS radio, like the Boxer, but it has support for both 2.4 gigahertz and the 900 megahertz frequency band. So it will bind to any Express LRS receiver, and it gives you the option to use 2.4 gigahertz on your drones where you want a smaller antenna, and 900 megahertz on your drones where you want longer range. It's your choice. It does not have diversity, so it has dual band, but only one antenna, no diversity. It does not do Gemini, and if you don't know what Gemini is, this is not the video to go into that, but I'll put a link in the video description below to a summary of what Gemini is way back from when it first came out. Basically, it's 2 antennas, 2 radios operating at the same time to give you increased link quality. The TX15 has an amazing screen. It's got a big color touchscreen. It could be brighter. Can I turn the brightness up if I got that set up? Yeah, I do. I got these knobs set up as color and brightness. It's got a big touchscreen. It's not the brightest. The brightest is the screen on the TX16S, but it's pretty freaking nice, and it is, a touchscreen. So if you want that touchscreen, that is going to steer you towards this radio, right? All the other radios we've looked at so far just have the little black and white screen that you interface with through the scroll wheel, and it's like a text-based interface. Looks like a computer from the freaking 1980s. Big touchscreen, pictures. That's really nice. It does take up more battery, so you're probably going to want a bigger aftermarket battery, but yeah, you got to make your sacrifices. As far as the switch layout goes, it's the same switch layout as the Boxer. So if 1, 2, 3, 4 switches with 2 shoulder buttons isn't enough for you, then you may want a different radio. But bear in mind that on the TX15, these 6 buttons are individually programmable, fully programmable, so you could use this as an extra 2-position switch, or you could group these guys. So 1, 2, 3 is a new 3-position switch, if you will. And then this 4, 5, 6 could be a separate 3-position switch. I have a video tutorial about how to set that up. I'll put links to all that stuff in the video description below, of course. The other thing that you can do with this radio is you can swap out these switches, which are flat profile switches for traditional switches. There's a separate plate that you put in, and it's got the switches that come with the radio, or maybe you have to buy them separately, I'm not sure. So if you don't like this style of switch, and I especially don't like this is okay as a momentary for like a beeper because it pops back out when you release it, but this one, a lot of times I would use this switch for arming, and I don't like arm, disarm. Disarm is 2 movements. It's in and out. And then sometimes you just short stroke it, although this switch is pretty responsive. But I've had situations on the TBS Tango where sometimes you short stroke the switch and it doesn't lock, and then you thought you disarmed, but you didn't. So I would never use this for arming personally. I would replace this if this was my daily driver. That's your choice, though. The TX15 comes with the AGO2 gimbals. So you saw the AGO1s on the Boxer. The AGO2s are the next generation of that. They're the full metal CNC gimbals, and one of the advantages of the AGO2 is that they are fully adjustable from the front of the radio. The AGO1 has adjustments for the top-down travel and the spring tension and the centering from the front, but not the left-right travel, which I don't know if you want to do that, but with the AGO2, you can adjust all of those settings, including the left-right travel from the front of the gimbal. That's pretty cool. This is the RadioMaster GX12, and the first thing I need to tell you is that it does not come like you see it here. These are a mod. It's an officially supported mod that RadioMaster sells, but it comes with 2 little antennas that fold out right here, and I just wanted a little bit of increased range and just felt like modding my radio, so just keep that in mind as you're looking at it. The GX12 is kind of a compromise between somebody who wants more switches. So it's got a ton of switches, 1, 2, 3, 4 switches here. They're all 3-position switches. We've got momentaries here. We got sliders here, and we have momentary switches here. We've got a ton of switches. I have almost never run out of switches when I'm setting up drones, even like long-range drones with GPS, return to home, flight modes, airplanes with lots of different flight modes, even setting up some airplanes with like a gimbal. And so I'll use these sliders to control the gimbal. I've never run out of switch. I've come close, but I've never run out of switches. Like, I've had to make compromises where I'm like, oh, I'd really rather not put the buzzer on this switch, but it's the only one I have left. But I've been able to do everything I need to do. It does have the fully programmable 6-position switch as well. So this is a really great radio for somebody who wants a lot of switches in a relatively compact form factor. It's relatively compact in that, like, you can see it's not that much shorter than the T15, but it feels that way because we've just got the screen kind of sticking out here. And as far as the size goes, it fits nicely in the hands. This is actually my daily driver radio. The gimbals are not the full metal CNC gimbals. They are not quite as good as the AGO1 or the AGO2, which some part of me, the kind of part of me that just wants to have, a fancy, set of shoes or pull up to the party in a car that everybody looks at and they're like, yeah, that guy's cool. I know that, like, I don't have the coolest, best gimbals, but like, I'm a pretty shit pilot anyway, so like, it's not like it's actually holding me back. And these gimbals are not fully adjustable. You can see here, we do have adjustment screws from the back. Not very much though. Here's just the throttle centering, so we can change the throttle, but everything else you'd have to open up the radio. So that is a step down, but not enough to steer me away from the radio. The screen on this radio is a small black and white screen. It is an OLED instead of an LCD, and I've heard some debate about whether that's a step forward. It's a black and white OLED. I've heard some debate about whether that's a step forward or not in terms of sunshine visibility. It's never been an issue for me though. Oh yeah, the radio, this is a 1 watt express LRS radio like all the ones we've seen in this tier, but it's dual band. And it's dual band with Gemini support. So you can do dual transmissions, one on 2.4 gigahertz, one on 900 megahertz at the same time out of these two radios. And that could probably be tighter. And that's pretty freaking cool. This is the first RadioMaster released with dual band Gemini support. Next up, the RadioMaster Zorro. And I want to love this radio so much. It is so close to a really good radio. But there's one thing that holds it back. Let's talk about the good parts. Ergonomics. Nice gamepad style ergonomics, but still relatively hefty in the hands. It doesn't feel like I'm like holding a tiny little thing. Lots of switches. Lots of switches, momentary switches, knobs, plenty of switches, especially for such a small radio. Gimbals, AGO1 nano gimbals, or micro gimbals, AGO1 gimbals. That's the full metal CNC gimbals that RadioMaster makes. They're just the best gimbals RadioMaster makes. They're very, very good gimbals. What holds it back is the batteries. It has these, I can't take this off. These covers would pop off, so I put some like a little bit of E6000 in there just to hold them closed, and now they're a real pain in the ass to take off. So I glued my batteries in my radio. But they're 18350. They're like smaller even than 18650s, and you'll get like, if you get like 2 hours of runtime out of the batteries, you're doing good. It's such a problem that RadioMaster put an auxiliary charging port here, and the radio comes with a battery strap to strap a second battery here and plug into this auxiliary port to extend your runtime. If you're okay with the short runtime, this radio is not too expensive and has pretty good performance. I think it's 250 milliwatt express LRS. Did you prepare for the video, Bardwell? No, I just know all this stuff off the top of my head, and I'm usually right. It's 250 milliwatt express LRS, has built-in antennas, has a slot here for an SMA if you were to choose to do that, although I don't think you really should, because if you're trying to do long range, you need more battery life than this. Has a folding antenna here. Why is it not folding? There we go. Folding antenna there. It's just a great little compact radio, but a step up from the pocket. This is the RadioMaster TX16S Mk3. It just released, and it's what inspired me to make this video. It is RadioMaster's flagship model, and it is big. It's the biggest of them. Like, compare this to the GX12. It's a hefty boy. Compared to the pocket, right? It is a hefty boy. Now, some people want a big, full-fat, old-fashioned, well, I say old-fashioned because it's big and it has all these switches, radio controller. That's what they want. They don't want some Xbox-looking thing, and this is that. But in addition to just being a big, full-fat, all the switches you could possibly want, old-fashioned radio controller, it's got some pretty cool features. It has a gigantic color touchscreen. Welcome to EdgeTX. It has a digital speaker that doesn't pick up noise or anything, and it just sounds so crisp and clear. It's beautiful. It's got all the LEDs you could want. Well, again, this is the Max version, which comes with these LED rings and the metal AGO2 gimbals. It feels amazing. You would pay $1,500 for a radio like this 15, 20 years ago if you were buying it from somebody like Spectrum or Futaba, and this is under $300 for this one, the max version. I think it's $200 for the standard version, which is just as good, but it doesn't have the metal gimbals and it's got plastic buttons instead of metal buttons. Anyway, as far as the radio, 1 watt of output power, dual band, and it does have diversity and Gemini, but where's the second antenna? It's in the handle. Hello! That's so freaking cool. 1 antenna, 2 antennas. It just does, it's everything you could want. If you're okay with the size, then this is just the one to get in a lot of ways. Let's close out the video by talking about who you might be as a pilot, and then which radio I think would be best for you. Before we do that, 2 things. If you want to buy any of these radios, there's links in the video description below. They're affiliate links. That's one of the main ways that I support the channel. It used to be much more prominent, but people are buying less nowadays because everything is expensive and people have less money. So you could also join my Patreon for $2 a month if you wanted to make sure I could keep doing this. Enough begging, as some of you call it. The other thing is that I have reviewed almost all of these radios individually, if not all of them, and I will put links to my reviews of all of the radios down in the video description below if you want to do more of an, this is obviously a very high-level summary. If size is a priority for you, then I would suggest either the Pocket or the Zorro. If you're trying to just chuck this into a backpack, then the Pocket is the most durable. The Zorro is going to be a little less durable, although it does have these stubby switches, and it's still pretty chuckable into a bagable, but it's just a little bit less durable because it's got the gimbal sticking out and it's got the switches sticking out. I don't recommend the T8L if size is your priority. Obviously, it's a small radio, but if size is your primary priority, then that means you're probably not a beginner, or where you would have said, I'm a beginner and I'm just starting out. And so unless you're just a beginner who's just starting out, this is your very first radio and you expect to outgrow it or relegate it to simulator, or my little brother uses it, then don't buy the T8L. Buy something that you'll be able to grow with just a little better. The TX15 or the RadioMaster Boxer would probably be my pick if somebody wanted, it's just pick one radio for me. They aren't the best at everything. They're not the smallest. The Boxer doesn't have the 900 megahertz support, so it's not going to be as good for long range. The screens, I think, is a wash. I actually kind of prefer the black and white screen, although the color touchscreen is sexy while you're using it. And the ergonomics on both of them are pretty good, and they're not too expensive. They're not the top of the tier. This could be the only radio you use for years and years and years. So if you're just looking for a solid, safe, all-around choice, get one of these. The TX15 being a little bit newer, a little bit more expensive, and remember having that dual band 900 megahertz and 2.4 gigahertz support, which might be a benefit if you end up getting into long range stuff. Speaking of long range stuff, which radio for long range? For long range, you're going to want to focus on a radio that has 900 megahertz frequency support, and that's going to be the TX16S Mk3, the TX15, and the GX12. All of these radios have equivalent output power. I can't fit them all on the screen. All of them have equivalent output power. The main difference is going to be that the GX12 and the TX16S do Gemini and diversity, whereas the TX15 does not. That's not a super deal breaker. It's not going to make or break, but it might make a difference, especially if you're in scenarios where you might get interference on one frequency band and need to fail over to the other. As far as long range goes, the other big advantage of the GX12 is that it does have the option to mod in these external antenna connectors, and you'll be able to use a higher gain antenna. The TX15, I just am double checking, it does not have that option. You can open the radio up, take this antenna off, and with some 3D printing or whatever, you obviously could mod it, but it's not made for that from the factory. And the TX16S Mk3 does have the factory support for modding in external antennas. So for long range, I probably would steer you toward the GX12 or the TX16S Mk3 and not the TX15 for that reason. If you're somebody who thinks that you will need more than the typical amount of switches, you don't just do arm, disarm, turtle mode, beeper, and angle mode, but you would have, you're flying iNav or RG-Pilot birds with return to home, altitude hold, etc., more complicated flight modes. If you're interacting with gimbals and servos and things like that, you're going to need more than the usual amount of switches. For those, I think the GX12 or the TX16S are the way to go, just because they have more switches than the others. And yes, I guess we could argue that the RadioMaster Zorro should be included in that, as it does have a lot of switches, so fine, although the very short battery life really sours me on it a little bit. And the other thing is it's 2.4 gigahertz only, and only 100 milliwatts of output power, not 1 watt. And so it just feels like if like you're doing all that complicated stuff, you probably want a little bit more performance than that radio is capable of giving. And then finally, if you want just the mostest, bestest, mostest radio that you could possibly get, it's going to be the TX16S Mk3. Obviously. But for anybody who cares about size, for anybody who cares about complexity, well, mostly it's size. That it's not even that expensive compared to the others, but it's just a freaking behemoth. Like, you're going to get this in your bag. It's like, unless you have one of those backpack bags where it's like the whole top of the bag is dedicated to cradling your beautiful radio, or you're going to be one of those guys, don't be one of those guys who carries your radio to the field in like its own little pouch. Okay, you could do whatever you want. I'm just being silly, but like, you know, size is the main reason to stay away from this radio. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a playlist of my reviews of all of these radios. I'm also going to put a few other things in that playlist, like the review I did when Gemini first came out and I tested it, and you're like, what the hell is Gemini? So just to kind of give you background information on what these radios have going for them and how to decide between them. But ultimately, you may have already decided you think you know which one's the best. Go ahead and watch the review just to be sure. And then go down to the links in the video description, click those links, and buy that radio and enjoy it. Also, is there something I missed? I'm sure there is. I just sat down and rattled this off the top of my head. So tell me in the comments, who did I leave out or what did I get wrong? I promise to remember that I said to do that and not just think you're a jerk who wants to, you know, troll me and then respond negatively, as I sometimes do when I ask for feedback in the comments. Here's that playlist, and I'll see you in the next one.